Hi, I've been working on my 2008 C6 Corvette, and I got an error message about my active suspension. I have the F55 suspension package on this, and I think this video will also help you out if you have any GM car that has airbags or this device that attaches to your lower control arm that reads ride height. This moves up and down. It connects to your lower control arm. This is the lower control arm, a spare one, and I don't know if you can see this little threaded hole here. A little trailer hitch type fitting fits in there, and then this snaps onto that. So as that trailing arm goes up and down, it relays that information to your ECM or your PCM, your computer. This has one plug with 3 pins in it that plugs into it, and then there's just one little bolt that holds it in place onto the frame of your car. So you'll be able to look, it's right down in here, and on your car, and be able to see that and take that off, or maybe watch another video for that. The whole purpose of this video is to show you how I did a diagnostic on this to see if this was working or this was not working. The message I got was a C0585, and that says actuator circuit open, symptom 4. And symptom 4 means, I guess it wasn't getting any information from this. Well, I didn't want to replace this because they're kind of pricey. New ones are about $160, $170, and used ones about half that, if this wasn't the problem. And so I looked online and through YouTube and tried to figure out how to test it, and I didn't see anything. So I decided I'd figure it out myself. And the way this thing works is these 3 pins that connect to the wiring harness of your car. One is a 5-volt input, and then of course there's a ground or a negative, and then the other one is the sensor output, this being the sensor. And that output varies from 0.25 volts to what I've read says 4.75 volts. So as this moves up and down, that varies the voltage to the PCM, which interprets that, and then it makes adjustments, in my case, to the shocks. If you're an airbag car, it would be making adjustments to those airbags. And so I set out to figure out how to test it, and I'm going to show you how I did that, and hopefully that can I wasn't going to show you this, but I'm going to pull off the back of this sensor, this ride height sensor, and show you kind of what the guts of it look like. Is what you'll see in there is there's going to be a little circuit board, and then the circuit board is covered up with a resin, and the resin it's kind of soft, and it protects the circuit board from the elements. And it's that circuit board that sends the voltage to your PCM. I think, trying to remember the term, oh, it's reference. The 5 volts that go into this, they call it the reference. And so when you see something referring to the reference, that's the 5 volts that's going into it, and then a variable amount, of course, comes out. So I hope you can see it. It's kind of an amber-colored resin there, but inside there is a little circuit board. I'm going to move it up, pretty close, and I don't know if the lighting's good enough to tell or not. But anyway, take my word for it if you can't see it. There's a little circuit board inside of there. And so I'll put this back on, and then we'll do the test. I thought it was going to be, they called it, I think, a potentiometer. I thought it was going to be something like the old radio buttons, where there was going to be like a bunch of coiled up wire in there with a some type of metal that, like a dial that touched up against there, and as this moved, it would vary the voltage, kind of like your fuel sending unit that you have. That's kind of how I had it pictured, something like that. I happen to have one of those sending units right here because I had to replace the one on my passenger tank, but I thought it was going to be something like that and not a circuit. But at any rate, now I know. Now you know. And the way I tested it was I went out and I have a bunch of power supplies, and one just happened to be a 5-volt DC power supply that I could, plug in, and it outputs 5 volts. If you don't have one, you can find them on Amazon. I think I saw them for as low as $3, and it's just something like this, and it has an output that you would plug into something. This happens to be 5 volts, converts to 5 volts DC 2 watts. Now, if you can see right here, I kind of rigged this up. I took a piece of wire and I shoved into the hole because the inside of it is the hot, or the 5 volts. The outside here is the ground. This little area right here, that's the ground. So when you plug it into something that you're charging, this is a charger or a power supply for something else. This happened to be for an audio-visual thing that I had in the house. That's how you get the power, through the middle. So I put that in there and just put a little bit of electrical tape on there. And now I'm going to plug it in. So there. And now I just take my voltmeter, and if I hook my voltmeter up to this, it should tell me that I have 5 volts coming out of it. So let me turn it on. There's the voltmeter. So I'll hold that on the ground, and I'll push that. Well, it's going to be easier if I maybe use an alligator clip, because I need an extra hand to hold up the voltmeter. So there we go. And now I can hold up the voltmeter, and yeah, it shows what, 5.15. It's never exact, but 5.15 volts coming out of this thing. All right. So now I'm going to hook it up to the sensor, and we'll see what we have. Just for safety's sake, I think I'll just unplug the power supply. And here is what I found out about which pin you need to connect things up to. There's my drawing, and here's the connector. This thing up here, that's a little nub that the clip on the wiring harness hooks into. My thumb's hitting it right there. And so the one on the far left, on this side, that's going to be the 5-volt reference going into it. The middle one's going to be the signal coming out that goes to your PCM. And the far right one over here, that's the negative. And so that's the way I'm going to hook this up. So what I found was easiest to do was to hook some little alligator clips up. So I got that one on the rightmost pin, at least I think I do. Yeah. And then I had to pull the rubber shield off of this one to make sure all 3 would fit. And I'll put this one on the middle pin, and this green one on the rightmost pin. And we should be set up. Okay, so based on that diagram, the white one is going to be the hot, so I'll connect that up to that one, and hope I'm giving you the right. I'm looking at this upside down. Anyway, this one, the leftmost one over here, that's the hot. That's the 5 volts going in. This green one right here, that's going to be our ground, and so I'll hook that up. And then the yellow one, that's the center one, that's going to be the sensor that comes out. So I'm going to hook that to my red line right there, and I'll hook the black side of my gauge to the ground right here. Is what I found was easiest, is just to shove this underneath that rubber cover so it's making good connection with that alligator clip. Okay, so I'm going to plug this back in again. And we should have 5 volts going to it. There we go. All right. Now, if I hold up the voltmeter there, you can see it says 4.88 volts. Well, it's supposed to go from 0.25 to 4.75. So that's pretty close to 4.75. And now, as I move this throughout its range of motion, this is going to change. Let me pull it all the way down there. Okay, so that's all the way one direction. As you can see, it went to 0.25 volts, and that's exactly right. That's what it's supposed to be. And then I'll kind of try to release it slowly here and have it go up a little bit. There we go. And as you can see, the voltage changes as it goes up. And when it gets all the way to the top, it just slipped there. Anyway, now it's at, I know my hand's blocking it, now it's at 4.88, and that's the voltage that's going to your PCM. So again, maybe I can just set that like that. Lean it on some rivets or something, you'll be able to see that. And as I go through the range of motion, it changes. And what's cool about this, at least on my car, it processes this information so rapidly that it says that it will make an adjustment to your suspension at freeway speed every inch that you go. I don't know if that's the same thing for air ride or airbag suspension, but it's pretty remarkable. So anyway, this one looks like it works. So I must have a problem elsewhere. That's a little concerning there that it dropped below 0.25, but that's how I tested. So I really hope that can help you out in the future. And good luck with that. Maybe that can save you a little bit of money, and you can find your open circuit, broken wire or bad pin elsewhere.